What's up, everybody? Welcome to another Proven Gamer review. I'm your host, Resident Darrell. I'm here today to talk about a little indie game called Sephonie. This is a Ratalaika published game from a little developer called Analgesic Productions. Sephonie is a 3D puzzle platformer with parkour abilities, parkour aspects, and you travel around a mysterious island with a bunch of caverns and a lot of very interesting and different biomes. So what I want to say up front is this is a very, very pretty game. This game has a very low poly, interesting PS1 almost art style, but very reminiscent of your Final Fantasies and your Parasite Eves, things of that nature. There was a lot of little things that kind of triggered, oh man, I remember this from this era. So the game starts off and you meet this character named the Observer, and he's telling you the story of how you first came in contact with him. And you go to this island, this mysterious island called Sephonie, and from there you have a short tutorial. You kind of learn the basic mechanics of the game, and you have 3 different playable characters that you can switch through at any given time. But for the most part, none of the abilities change. Nothing is really different between them. You can just change based on which character you prefer. So I stayed with Amy. I believe Amy's the first character of the 3 that you play as, and outside of short little spurts here and there where you're forced to do something narratively that like digs into some backstory or maybe tells you a little bit more of what's going on with this character, you don't really change them and nothing is different. Again, this is a puzzle 3D platformer with parkour elements, and they really do lean into all 4 of these game mechanics. I gotta say, overall, the parkour and the platforming is very frustrating in this game. Overall, I did not enjoy my time playing the game until you get into the puzzles. So I want to break the game mechanics, into a few different sections, starting off with just the basic, how do you maneuver through the game. This game, you start off, you learn how to jump, you learn how to dash, you learn how to do your version of a double jump. You can do some wall running and some very basic parkour elements. But I played this game on the PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5, and I feel like at times I spent most of my time playing this game fighting the controls. Like you start off learning these wall running mechanics into a jump, into a double dash or double jump with a dash. And there's various things as you progress through the game into the different biomes and levels where maybe there's something that gives you a higher boost or for your jump, or something that gives you wings temporarily and you can fly. And for the most part, those things all worked, but there was something really odd about the XY mechanics where when you're running, especially, you can't necessarily look around freely, looking, like at left and right and things of that nature. If you're walking, you have a much better control over what you can see and what you can look around to. And it felt like for me, I was constantly fighting that, jumping from platform to platform, trying to find my way around the various parts of the map. As a matter of fact, I got so incredibly frustrated with the actual act of parkour that I spent way more time in the game probably than it warranted. Now, there was a ton of story, a ton of dialogue, and a ton of things going on that can keep you invested if you don't necessarily love the actual feel of the game. But for the most part, I really did not enjoy my time playing this game. I did not enjoy the parkour aspects. I didn't feel like they were quite sticky enough. I felt like there were several times where the game was just not quite doing what I wanted it to do. Now, it offers a lot of different things, but the parkour, especially in the platforming, I feel is where it failed the absolute most. Now, this game is a 3D puzzle platformer as it's advertised, and the puzzle aspects are pretty good. As a matter of fact, as the 3 scientists, you run around and you find these different organisms, and in order for you to capture them essentially and put them into your little book of things that you have found, you have to solve a Tetris style puzzle for each one. Now, it's not the basics of Tetris, as in here's your standard amount of shapes. They fall from the sky and then you place them in and knock out areas. But it is very similar in the sense that you have starting off with a square. Maybe you'll have 4 squares. You have this area and you place down your shapes and you can spin them around to make them connect into each other. And the idea is you're building these similar colors to cluster them together. And then once you've exhausted your move sets, you have a gauge, a bar. And as you've put the pieces together that help fill that space that are also very similar, you are building up what looks like an XP bar, but essentially that is your progress bar. And then if you run out of, you exhaust your times, the amount of times you can place down an a square or a shape, you hold the R trigger, and at least again, I'm playing on PlayStation. You hold on the R trigger, it clears it out, and it fills up your progress bar. Then you have a few more plays that you can do. As the game progresses, this gets more and more difficult because there are things on the map that maybe break away your blocks. There are things where you can't necessarily put certain blocks or certain shapes, and there are things that there are certain fail states. There's places where you can occur damage and therefore you can get knocked out of your puzzle. I thought this was by far the most interesting part of the entire game, the actual puzzle mechanics, and I feel like this is where the game shines personally. That was the most fun that I had playing, and it was kind of frustrating getting from point to point in the map so that you could get to the next puzzle, because realistically, if you would have given me an entire game where I just had this style of puzzle solving, I would have had a much better time instead of fighting the controls to get to these certain spots. Now, again, the way the game tells the story is you're a scientist and you're collecting data and you're putting together different genetic structures, and so like in putting together the genetic codes. And so as these puzzle pieces are falling together and you're making progress, it's like, oh, you've created this. Oh, you've created this. And the idea is they're harvesting and they're learning. But again, you're essentially playing a stripped down version of Tetris, or maybe stripped down is not the best way of putting it, but you're playing a version of a Tetris style puzzle. And it was very fun. That part, I think, excels and was done very well. Something else I think excels in the game outside of its standard, point A to point B gameplay was the level design. I think the level design was really great. I think that some of the platforming sections were cool to look at, and the various ways that you are supposed to make it from platform to platform were very cool. And I'm going to tell you a tip right now that will help you to enjoy this game much, much more, because I fought with this for a couple hours. I spent, again, way more time than I should have put in the game total, trying to achieve the platforming and trying to really get my hands on it, really wrap my head around it. And if you go into the menus, there's lots of options in the pause menu. And one of the things I got to give this game a lot of credit for is you can turn on infinite jump. You can turn on speed through the text, auto skipping the text like you would like a standard visual novel. Or you can also turn on infinite sprints or infinite dash, and then you can turn the puzzle solving down. So if let's say there's a puzzle you're having a lot of issues with, as you progress through the certain levels, some of these puzzles get much, much bigger and more layers to them. And let's say you're having issues with it. You can turn the puzzle solving down to easy, and you can skip through it much easier. You can actually go through it without occurring a ton of damage and having fail states. That being said, you can turn on the infinite jump. Now, when I first started playing the game, I scroll through the options, I see what's available, and I'm like, oh, infinite jump, why would you need that? I don't run out of jump. It didn't trigger to me that you could jump consistently and almost fly through the maps. Now, I know the trophy hunters are going to use this as an exploit to clear this game 100% super fast, and I don't necessarily blame them, because once I turned on the infinite jump, I enjoyed this game so much more. And again, I said the level design was really good. I enjoyed the actual levels and the ways that you get from point A to point B, and the different mechanics that were presented to you as you progress through the different biomes. One of the things I found frustrating was the actual act of getting there sometimes. So once I turned on infinite jump, I could then just go to each area and I could fly around the map essentially and discover the various organisms. And sometimes they're insect-like, sometimes they're animal-like. And from there, I enjoyed the game tremendously more, so much more. It was a lot more fun, and it was really cool. The game is really, really pretty. Again, it has a retro-ish style, a lot of PS1 love and flavor, but yet more, it's a modern-ish game. So again, getting to see the game and actually enjoying how I'm getting there, much, much better. From there, also, there's collectibles. Now, these collectibles are hidden all over the place. Me personally, with my skill level, just don't understand how you can get there without the infinite jump. Some of these collectibles were put in such places that I'm just like, wow, I would have never found this had I not been able to toggle on infinite jump. So I definitely, if you're listening to this and you make it this far, hey, definitely turn on infinite jump. Save yourself some time and some frustration. From there, it's just a matter of solving the different puzzles, harvesting the organisms, and then going through the story. Now, there is a ton of story in this game. I'm not going to say the story was good. I thought the story was actually quite boring. There's backstory for the different characters. You kind of learn a little bit about their whys and what they do. But ultimately, none of it was super interesting. As a matter of fact, it was very, very thick as far as the amount of reading goes. And after about 3/4 of the way through, I had pretty much lost interest in everything that was going on. So I don't think storytelling was the strong suit of this game, and I also don't think the actual platforming was the strong suit of this game. I think that looking at the game was great, and I think, again, once you turn on that infinite jump, making your way through the level and seeing what was created was good. And the music was really good. The music was very pretty. Again, kind of harkens back to that old PlayStation 1 time. There were certain things, even certain little menu sound effects that reminded me of old Final Fantasy. And I don't know if that was on purpose or if that was just a design choice and it was like, oh, it just kind of worked out that way. But it reminded me of my time playing old Final Fantasy games. And as a huge Parasite Eve fan, there were certain things that reminded me of that time frame in those games, specifically in the sound and some of the organisms, some of the various things that you come across. Again, some things were very insect-like and some things were very animal-like. Some things were very parasitic. So it was just something about it. Just like, I was like, man, this is kind of hidden in an area that is very nostalgic and very interesting to me. So with that being said, I don't think the story was very excellent. As a matter of fact, I thought it was way too long and way too thick. And very much my general train of thought playing this game was someone who was very smart, tried to do a lot of things with a smaller game. And I don't know that it all landed very well for me personally. Also, this observer character that you are learning about in the game, it's very interesting design choice. That being said, with the design choices, there were several times you'd have almost like cutscenes in the game, but instead of playing just a fully animated cutscene, you would have these almost like stills where the camera would kind of swing around, and you would have like these low poly shapes of the characters as it would tell their story and kind of tell things that are going on. And again, it was very interesting. It was a very interesting take for utilizing the assets that are in this game, but overall, it just did not land for me personally. So I would say this: if you are looking for a quick platinum, this may not be the game, because I know Ratalaika has a reputation for easy platinums. Now, again, once the trophy geniuses get out there and find all the exploits and put out some decent trophy guides, sure, maybe this will be a game for that. If you're looking for just a small indie experience that's very creative and very different, take some chances, this is definitely a game for you. If you are a hardcore platformer and you love parkour, maybe this game is better suited for you than it was for me. And if you're looking to read essentially the equivalent of a visual novel, then yes, this is another game for you. But if you're just trying to get in and get something quick out of it, this might not be the type of game that you're looking for. And again, I do recommend it on this from the puzzle solving sense, that if you are into the type of puzzle solving, any kind of Tetris-y style game, there is definitely that aspect, and I enjoyed that the most out of it. So overall, I do not necessarily recommend this game. If you are going to pick it up on a sale and go check out some of the other offerings from Ratalaika. But this has been a Proven Gamer review. We hope you guys enjoy it. Please subscribe to the channel for our other reviews and our other podcasts, like the Trophy Horse, the flagship podcast for the Proven Gamer Network. Thank you so much for checking this out. Like, share, subscribe, and we'll catch you on the next one.